Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Lifetime Legacy Lawyer Podcast. I'm your co-host, Thomas Vick, joined by my co-host, Seth Wilson. Seth, how's it going today?
Thomas, I'm doing great. I'm excited. We have a special guest with us today, and we'll kind of let Corey introduce himself here in a second. But we wanted to highlight what he's doing some really interesting things, supporting law firms as well as running a law firm himself, he and his wife. And so excited to have you here, Corey.
Great. Well, thank you for having me. I'm excited to chat with you guys a little bit.
Awesome. Well, Thomas, I'll kick it off to you. You want to get started, and then we'll just pepper Corey with questions until he hangs up.
Yeah, well, Corey, thank you so much for joining us today. As listeners to the podcast may know, we're a podcast that tries to help out solo and small firm attorneys, help people to kind of get started with their law practice. And having attorneys on to talk about their law practice is a great way to kind of spread the word and educate people about what is needed in order to open up their own law firm. So maybe we could just start there. What is your experience, Corey, with law office management?
Yeah, well, again, thanks for having me. I would say about 12 years ago, I graduated from law school and just hung a shingle, started my own practice. No real official mentor or anything like that. A few nice people in the community, but that was about it. And we've just continued growing. So our own law firm, Sprunger and Sprunger, we now have 8 locations and 12 attorneys spread out on Northeast Indiana. So Angola down to Pendleton and everywhere in between. My wife is the other primary partner. So she and I, and then we have another partner, Josh Atkinson. But basically what we discovered was, number one, there's not nearly enough attorneys in the rural communities. So that means that there's an opportunity here, right? But if the demand for lawyers is higher than the supply, that means there is an economic opportunity that needs to be taken advantage of. So why isn't the market just automatically fixing? Right? I'm a believer in free market. So why doesn't the market just mean the attorney's fees go really high and then that attracts more labor out there and that fixes the problem? I think the answer is because that means you got to be a part of a small firm and spend half your day running the business. And so no matter how high your hourly rate is, if you're spending half your day doing that, you're never going to be productive, So we did some math, and the typical attorney in Indiana is billing 2.5 hours out of an 8-hour day, which means you could charge $1,000 an hour. It's just the math isn't working. And we realized that all of our attorneys in all these small towns are billing more like 6 hours a day. So out of an 8-hour day. So why? Why is that? And we realized, okay, that's because we have a central admin team. We don't have to do it ourselves. And so about 3 years ago, we decided, why don't we take that central administrative team, pull it out, and make it its own company and offer that administrative services to other law firms. And that's how we started. And we only had maybe 2 or 3 users the first year. The second year, I think we added like 19 or so users. And then last year we added 49. And, so it's kind of going that direction. And then it's morphed from there. And you can ask me more questions. I don't know what you do and don't want to know, but that's sort of the history. Started with the law firm, that's still going. And then also morph into this other organization over here that's helping other law firms as well as our own.
Well, I think that is such a great point about the efficiency and your usage rate, if you will, with the billable hours. I'm not sure what law practice management program you might use, but Seth and I talk a lot about our law practice management program, Clio, and it tracks how many hours per day you actually build. And I think if I recall correctly from a Clio report a year or two ago, on average it was like 1.7 hours per day that an attorney was actually billing. So I'm all ears as far as finding out about this admin center that you have and kind of what services you provide through that. And and all that kind of stuff. So,
Right.
Seth, do you have any comments on that?
Yeah, I guess what might be helpful, Corey, is to explain kind of the central admin, like what services were you seeing as essential for lawyers as they were running their practice on a day-to-day basis, that offloading those services then enabled them to provide more legal services versus hanging their hat on the admin peg for the day?
Well, it's a harsh truth, but so I'm just going to say it. But attorneys we're not good at being business owners. I don't know why that is, because we understand how things work. So we should, logic says we should be good at running a business. But most of us just are not. It's just not what we're good at. It's not what we've learned. We're also by nature are control freaks because we want it to be accurate and correct. We also overcomplicate things. So you put all those together and you end up with these businesses that are run so incredibly inefficient. And it sometimes just makes you scratch your head and go, I don't know how you made it this far. And so that's where it comes in and say, look, we're not all good at everything. That's why we go to the doctor's office. That's why we take our car to a car mechanic, right? We didn't learn all of these things. We learned how to be lawyers. So I think the biggest thing is just understanding and recognizing it's okay that this isn't your forte. Find someone that can help you do some of these type of things. And as we started, I think the bookkeeping was probably I would say that's the biggest one where people struggle so much. There is a fear of giving up the books. I know how it works and this is my process. And if they can just sort of let that go and say, all right, this is what you do, so do it, and just be done with it. Like, let that burden go. You don't need to carry that on your shoulders. So I'd say bookkeeping is the biggest time consumer. And then other than that, it's just vetting vendors is a real pain. And so that's where I think we've kind of already done that. And, when we first started, we were trying to do all of these services in-house. But as time went on, we had our own people answering phones for everybody. We had our own bookkeepers, our own payroll people, our own IT people, our own mailroom, all this stuff. But as time went on, we started to realize, even going to the next level here, is there are companies in every single one of these areas that this is all they do. So they are really good at it. There's a mail company out there that they've got 16 printers that if one goes down, they're ready for the next one, right? So how can we collectively take advantage of all of those? And that's where we came along and said, all right, well, we're going to go find like 20 different vendors, lump them all together, and make it so you don't have to go find each one of them. You basically come to us, we'll help you pick the best ones, and then we'll manage those vendors. So we'll help you get set up with them, deal with the transition. If the vendor's not performing, instead of going in and getting an employee in trouble, you come to us and we'll deal with the vendor. It's the same kind of concept, but it's almost just like having a virtual firm administrator at that point who manages all of your vendors instead of employees.
Yeah, and as Thomas and I know, I think from personal experience, just figuring out who can provide those services to the office and who can do it well. And I think you hit the nail on the head. Like, we feel responsible for that as lawyers, and you're responsible for paying people if you have them on your team. You're responsible for taking care of your family. You've got all these other business related outcomes that you as the attorney are trying to figure out, as you're also trying to figure out how to become the best lawyer you can be and provide actually revenue generating services to your office. And so that, I think that's a really important point of being able to scale more quickly, is leveraging the work that somebody has already gone through and figured out. So tell us a little bit about how the Sprunger Alliance plan works, and walk us through that process.
Yeah, so basically the concept is pretty simple. All of us are a lot stronger when we cooperate and work together than if we all try to do everything individually. Now, we all want to have our own independence, We all want to be our own firm, so we stay that way. We're not going to merge and become one giant, thing. Everybody has their own firm. You basically just it's a membership. We're all members of this one alliance. And then what that membership does is it allows us as administrators to go to these different vendors and say, hey, can we have a group discount? We got a whole bunch of people getting ready to buy. Can you give us a discount that, a solo practitioner would never have a crack at? And then we get that discount for everybody. And then we basically provide the ability for us to help manage those vendors as time goes on. So at the moment, we typically have membership dues. It's about $10 per employee per person that gets you access to all of this stuff. For a while, we've decided to waive those for the rest of this fall, basically. So we're not even charging membership dues right now. And then you just have access to all of those discounts. And if you want our help managing those vendors, then we just do an hourly rate for our time dealing with those people. We get you all set up and squared away, deal with any problems that come up. And it's just a good deal for everybody. Vendors get clients. Client companies are getting cheaper rates. And they get management service that, turnover these days has been terrible. And you don't have to worry about that because that's just gone. Not even a problem anymore.
And how long have you been doing the Sprunger Alliance?
So it depends how you want to answer that question. On the one hand, we've been doing it through our own law firm for 11 years. We pulled it out as its own company about 3 years ago. So I guess it depends how you answer that.
We always say the classic lawyer answer is it depends. So, we know Corey's a true licensed attorney if he's got that in his arsenal.
Yep, got it.
And tell me a little bit about the growth that you've seen from the members of the Alliance with their use of the admin services that you're providing.
Yeah, so like I said earlier, the first year we really only had 2 or 3 additional users outside of our own firm. So that would have been in 2022, and then the second year, we added not a ton, but maybe 19 or so users. So a lot of solo firms, things like that. And then last year we added just about 50 users. And then this year we're really ramping up a lot this year, investing a lot of capital into getting the system smooth, easier, negotiating with vendors to get discounts, a lot of effort this year.
Yeah, and to that end, Corey, it seems like you guys have been a lot more involved in different conferences and things that I've seen. How has the response been at the conferences to what Sprunger Alliance is offering?
And I think the benefit at these conferences is people walk around and there's, tables full of vendors, and it can be a little bit overwhelming. And so what you're trying to offer at that point is, hey, look, instead of talking to all these people and trying to sort out for yourself, just think of us like a general contractor. Come here and we'll help you pick the best subcontractors. Let's make this way simpler, and easier for you, and try and get it under one roof. We even go as far as we pay all of their bills to all these vendors, and then they just reimburse us at the end of the month. Like, it just makes it simpler for them even to do.
So instead of subscribing to 5, 6, 100 different subscription plans, you have one bill essentially to cover back to the Sprunger Alliance as part of your process. So it limits the number of subscriptions. We all know that we've got those in a great quantity nowadays, and so that can simplify that even from sort of your day-to-day financial administration.
Yep, you got it. Yeah, we've been busy this year. We were at the American Association of Legal Administrators in Nashville. We're going to CleoCon in Boston here in a few weeks. The Indiana Solo Small Firm Conference, Illinois Solo Small Firm Conference here in a few weeks. Missouri Solo Small Firm Conference. I don't know. There's a lot of them.
That's great.
Corey, sorry, Thomas, go ahead.
Well, I was going to kind of pivot towards kind of the law practice and kind of your systems with that. Seth, do you want to wrap up anything on the the Sprunger Alliance piece of things?
No, you read my mind.
Okay, good deal. Good deal. Yeah, Corey, I wanted to kind of talk to you about what are some points or some ways that you, in your own law practice, find to help you to be efficient and get closer to that 6 hour marker, as you mentioned.
Yeah, a number of things. One, I mean, the most obvious is get absolutely everything off your plate that is not billable. So if you can delegate it to, like what before Spurner Alliance, it was delegated to the admin team and just get out of here, and be really diligent about that. Other things is really trying to leverage some of these softwares that are out there. One that our firm just added and that we were able to negotiate a deal with to add to the Spurner Alliance platform is an AI software called Tempello. And essentially what they do is they read your emails. The AI reads your email, logs it back to Clio by reading the content of the email, and then it figures out which matter in Clio it goes with, which just kind of boggles my mind that it can do that. And I'm not going to tell you that it's right 100% of the time, but it's probably right 98% of the time. And it logs that to the correct one. And especially if you're an hourly billing person, every email gets logged as 0.1 time entry and gets logged to your communications entry. So you're no longer logging every email to Clio. And even if you would have missed one email, that's if you're $250 an hour, a 0.1 entry is $25 you just missed. So that can things like that can really, especially the AI, and we're just at the beginning of it. I mean, we don't know what all it can do right now, but it keeps popping up all over the place in different ways. But that Tempello, that one has added a lot to our attorneys in my firm, their ability to capture time and not waste time logging their emails.
That is one of the kind of the frustrating things about the Clio add-in to Outlook as it is right now in my law firm. I've got to log into Clio first, and then I've got to log into, Microsoft 365 or what have you, for double authentication purposes. And then only at that point am I able to save it to the Clio matter. So if you've got a program with Tempello that is able to do that automatically, I can only imagine how much more efficient you're going to be with your work.
Yeah, so that's a big one. There is a mail is another one that just sucks up people's time and they don't realize it. So we have a company called Edex that we work with. They also integrate into Clio, or they can be a standalone. But people don't realize by the time you print something, like you go up there to hit print, then you actually walk to the printer and get it. Then you walk back, find an envelope, fold it, stuff it in the envelope, write or print the address on the front, add a return label, add your postage, and then walk across the street to the post office. How much time you've just wasted. And if you're billing $250 an hour, I mean, 6 minutes is $25. You just wasted that. Absolutely wasted it. And so they're one where they integrate with Clio 2 or standalone, and you basically just upload the document. It reads the related contact in Clio and says, this is who you want it to mail to. Yep. And they mail it out the door. They bill it back to your client, and then they log that to your communications, and you've got all your tracking info. I mean, it's just this kind of technology stuff is just where things are going. And if you're going to be in a small town, you have to harness it.
Yeah, let me ask you about that, Corey, because the big news in the legal front is the impending attorney shortage, especially in rural counties where the populations just may not support, a bunch of folks going back to that. How have you utilized kind of that to your advantage and also address that attorney shortage and the provision of legal services problem at the same time?
Yeah, so if you think that the average attorney in Indiana is billing 2.5 hours a day, but yet we can make an attorney bill 6 hours a day, you have cut the attorney shortage in half immediately, just like that. Also, you're providing a way for people to move back to their hometown, work in a small town, and earn the kind of money they could have earned in a big firm, but with that small town impact. And for me, I'm all about purpose. Why am I doing what I'm doing? And I remember sitting in my church has a balcony up top, and I sit up there. I remember looking down one day and looking through all the rows and thinking to myself, I have helped somebody or somebody in that family in every single row. And that has value. And you can get that in a big town, but in a small town, it's more, you're going to see the impact of what you do.
Yeah, and you get to interact with people and you get to watch over a long period of time how that changes. And obviously that can have opposite effects if things don't go well, but most of the time as you're working through that, it is very rewarding for that, and I think also addresses some of the other concerns that are constantly plaguing the legal profession in terms of burnout and lawyer stress and over indulgence on certain things. I mean, we're always top of the charts in a lot of those categories. And so I think if you can bring that purpose back to the practice of law, the longevity of the lawyer is a good thing.
Yeah, I tell people we need to be, if you don't have a purpose to your life, nothing matters. Which seems like obvious, right? If you don't have a purpose, nothing matters. Obvious. But that is the reality. And if we're not doing this for a reason, there will not be fulfillment. It just won't happen. And for me, the motivating impact of my life is my faith. And to be able to express my faith in love towards my neighbor through impacting them, that's something you get by being a solo small practitioner. I'm not saying you can't do that in a bigger firm, but you're just so divorced from the impact of what you're doing that it can become kind of cold and distant. So unlocking this ability to be in a small town is really what we're focusing on and what we're doing. And it works so long as, I think, like I said before, our profession is, we're very, perfectionist and hands-on. We want everything accurate. And if we can find a way to get attorneys to sort of loosen up a little bit and let somebody run things for you, they can just do so good with their life, and they will be so happy. I mean, it's just a great thing.
I totally agree. I mean, that's the reason why I wanted to start my own law practice. I figured out pretty quickly when I was in law school that it will be better to be the boss than to be the employee and be able to set your own schedule and kind of decide what kinds of cases you're going to take on. I like the independence that having your own law firm allows you to have. Uh, but it is a challenge, and people need help along the way. Seth and I are good friends because of the help that he provided to me when I was just coming out of law school, trying to hang my own shingle, as you've done. And so, the more resources that you can accumulate and put together, and kind of just figure out who has done it before, and let me just kind of follow their footsteps, do what they do, and then I'll reach a similar result. That's kind of how I've treated Clio. Whatever Clio kind of suggests to me, that indicates to me I probably should be doing that kind of thing, because there's probably a reason why lawyers want a program to be designed that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the other big one is employee benefits. That's one that's been real hard for a lot of people. When you're in a small practice, you just really can't negotiate benefits very well with hardly anybody, and it's almost daunting to even try. And so one of the things we did is we stood up an actual PEO. So instead of just processing payroll, it's an actual licensed professional employer organization, which means if somebody joins the PEO part, they are technically co-employed by the local company, so your own firm, and they're co-employed by the PEO. which doesn't change anything for hiring, firing, performance. All of that stays exactly the same. But you're co-employed for the purpose specifically and only of processing payroll and applying for employee benefits. And I didn't know this existed. So when I first was explaining what I wanted to do to my CPA, he was like, better be careful. That's starting to sound like a PEO. And I was like, a what now? I looked it up and it's like, hey, this is a real thing. This has already been figured out. So then we basically can process the payroll, but we can apply for employee benefits as a big group. And then people can opt in or opt out, but at least like those options are available to you.
Yeah, and that's incredible because in that solo or small firm environment, health insurance is one of those things it's just not affordable in any stretch of the imagination. And so having even the hope that someday, right, this would work into that and allows folks a little bit more flexibility, better overall compensation programs for folks that are coming in, both for the lawyers and your team members that may not be lawyers, but providing that administrative support. So that's a really cool option to think through.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's been a lot of innovation, a lot of try this, oh that doesn't work, try this, oh that doesn't work, but you just you kind of know where you're going, you know the direction, and you just keep going until you find what does work.
Cool. Well, Corey, in the last couple minutes here before we close down and let you get back to running all the things you got going on, I always like to ask, give me maybe your top three tips that you would offer to someone kind of coming out of law school or who's been working in a firm and is thinking about starting their own law firm.
Okay, I would say tip number one is if you can work, if you're going to start your own practice, find a place, like go out, don't do it in a big city because they're oversaturated. The ratio of attorneys to population is 300% higher in Indiana's 4 big counties than it is to the other 88 counties. So start outside of the big cities. That will give you the opportunity that you need. So that'd be tip number one, I guess. Tip number two is you need to spend your time developing clients and not setting up all the business stuff. So instead of setting up payroll and setting up, your Clio accounts and this and that, like just don't do those things, finding a phone service. Don't do it. Find someone to take care of that for you, whether it's someone like Sprunger Alliance or hire somebody if you can do it. But just invest in getting that stuff off your plate so you can focus on the things that matter. What matters? Building out your form base, learning the law, getting clients, so make sure they know that you exist. Just get out there. Number three, what would be my next big tip to people? Honestly, I would say I tell all my new lawyers this. Unfortunately, it matters more what the clients think you know than what you actually know. So it's more important to be good at interacting with people than it is to know everything that you can possibly know. If they trust you, you're a good person. You're not gonna lead them down a bad path. Don't make up an answer. Just present yourself professionally, competently, and if you don't know the answer, say I will look it up and find the research and get back to you. It's just so important that you treat the client well, and then just build that rapport with them more than anything else.
That's awesome. Appreciate that. Thomas, any other closing questions?
Well, I just appreciate you coming on, Corey, and kind of telling us about Sprunger Alliance and kind of the opportunity that solo and small firms have, to help make them more efficient and more profitable, to allow people to do more things of what they love to do. So I appreciate you coming on to tell us about that. I know that I've enjoyed hearing about some of the services that you provide.
Very good. Well, thank you guys. Appreciate it. And look forward to talking to you soon.
Thanks.
All right. We are the Lifetime Legacy Lawyer Podcast. You can find us over on YouTube or on any of the major podcast players. Thomas, Corey, thanks so much. And we'll talk to you guys soon.
Thank you.